Hello, and welcome to the movie universe. I'm your host, Movie Fan. Well, folks, today is the big day. It is now the 30th anniversary of Power Rangers. And as you already know, I'm a huge fan. Now, because this is a very special day, I'm going to be talking about my experience with Power Rangers for the first time. When I was a kid, there was a lot going on. You had PBS doing Sesame Street and all that, which they still do, but I was in between the point where I was watching Sesame Street and getting ready to move on to something else. I first fell in love with a series called X-Men on Fox Kids, and I stuck around with because, well, they had some great stuff going on. And then on August 28th, 1993, I discovered Power Rangers. And it blew my mind. Because here you had these great, lovable characters who were great friends, who stood by each other, and definitely who were ready to fight the forces of evil, even though they were roped into it. And that's what they were. They were actually roped into it because Zordon summons them and says that they've been chosen to become Power Rangers and to save the Earth. At first, they had their doubts about it because, they're kids. They didn't want to do something like this. Plus, they thought this was a little over their heads. But in no time flat, they discovered that they did have what it took to be Power Rangers. And they learned why they were chosen, because they were good people who cared about what happened to the world and to each other. And that's one of the things that still endears about Power Rangers. They're the good guys. They're willing to do what it takes to fight the forces of evil. And they're definitely not willing to let anyone make the ultimate sacrifice if they can help it. Although that kind of thing has come up once or twice. And I know a lot of people are wanting it to happen in future episodes because they want it to be darker. To me, the originals will always be the best. Because, back then, this was meant to be for kids. And it still is, technically. Because, you don't get shows like this where it's live action and they get to fight monsters. And not to mention, they do preach a little bit about being good guys, but they're not too preachy about it because, they deal with Bulk and Skull on a daily basis. And granted, these guys were a bunch of goofs, but they show that there's more than one way to handle problems like that because they always outmaneuver them. They never go around beating them up just because they have the ability. They always just outmaneuver them. And, well, they're the better people for it because, one, did they raise a hand to them? Nope. Bulk and Skull tripped themselves up. That's what it comes down to. The show was obviously meant to set a good example for us all, and I think it did, because for me, it kind of paved the way for a lot of things. It taught me how to be a good person, and the show definitely teaches you how to be a good friend. And, it's been an inspiration for me for martial arts, because, ever since I saw the show, I got into martial arts myself. In fact, I'm a second-degree black belt. You may not believe it, but it's true. It's one of those kind of moments that, you can't ever escape. You sit back, you watch the show, and you just love what's going on. You love the characters and their personalities. And at the same time, you get the awesome martial arts action, the cool costumes, the weapons, and of course the cool monsters, and the Megazord, which is the best part. That was my experience back in the day. And 30 years later, it still has a special place in my heart. Because that's a show that you grow up with, that and you love. Even now when I watch it, it takes me back to a time when things were good, when things weren't all political like it is now. And it wasn't an issue of wearing a certain colored costume. It was a time when people could get along. And it definitely reflected that. The 90s was a great golden age. And this series highlighted that the most, and I will never forget it. And I think I'm going to leave this in closing because with the future Power Rangers, who knows what it'll be. And I think Austin St. John and Walter Emmanuel Jones said it best.
So what's next?
Well, the only thing that we know for sure is that wherever evil threatens the universe, you can bet that the Power Rangers will be there to save the day.
And that's the truth. This is Movie Fan signing off. And happy 30th anniversary to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.